Hey guys, it's your boy, Ballface8020, back again with another great commentary. Quick Ecopenomics update, like the rehash or disclaimer at the beginning. I've made a lot of economic predictions over these last 1.5 years that have not turned out correctly. I predicted that inflation wouldn't be a problem. I predicted that there would be a recession in 2022. And, and then in this video, I'm going back on my prediction that I made at the end of 2022, which was that recession would begin in 2023. Now, I think that, if you actually go back and watch those videos, that, I gave reasons for all of my predictions. And I still think the reasoning there was good, except for maybe the recession call, which was a mixture. I think I just got over my skis on that. That was a bit of wishful thinking on my part and just not really understanding leading indicators for recessions. I still think that the prediction I made late last year that there would be a recession in May was pretty bold, and it probably, I think is going to turn out to be overly aggressive. But it was, I don't know. I guess at the time it probably, I think most people probably would have said if there was going to be a recession in 23, it would have been later in the year. But it was based on, 5 very historically accurate leading indicators. And the leading indicators were in a range. They were saying that there would be a recession, sometime between March and September. And most seem to be saying recession by March, not even in March, by March. So I was thinking well, I tend to usually predict these things to happen sooner than they do. So I've got one saying recession not till May, one saying recession not till September, and then a few others saying either March or by March. So let's be conservative and go with May. And I thought I was being conservative with that. The thing is, the one that said September, and maybe even later than September, that's the one that should have given me pause. I should really have said all 5 indicators need to be there. And the 5th one had to relate, more to housing. And housing just has not collapsed as fast as we anticipated. So for a variety of reasons, one is Fed policy, stimulus, stuff like that. This time it did prove to be different, and the recession that we would have expected, or I expected to happen in May, has gotten, it's still coming. I'm still positive about that, but it's been pushed off. So right now, though, I'm going to throw in the towel and say no, the recession did not begin in May. I think it's going to start in September. I actually wouldn't be surprised if it got backdated to August. Really, there's everything's recessionary right now. You can tell, you just talk to people, or even how you feel yourself. I don't, if you're an American, if you're living in America, everything, it feels like we're in a recession. Not necessarily a horrible recession, but it feels like a recession. And we have had the real wages per hour have declined for something like 17 months in a row, or I think maybe 18 or more months in a row, a lot. So with that, of course it feels like a recession. We're all poor. And inflation has slowed down, but it's still there. Only it's in these last 2 months that we've actually seen real wages per hour finally start to go up again, or somewhere around there. I don't know, but it declined for a long time. But anyway, everything, it feels recessionary. There's a bunch of recessionary indicators. If you were going to say we're not in a recession, and I technically don't think we are, even if, it is a bit arbitrary, because, it's just the NBER just determines after the fact based on a whole variety of things. So there may be some arbitrariness to it. But you would cite 2 things. You would say jobs in the stock market. And I just didn't expect jobs or the stock market to last this long. Like the stock market, I know, it's like it's such bullshit that I knew that they could gas it up for a while because I've been waiting for the stock market to crash again since 2009. Um, but jobs, it just like I just didn't like where do the jobs keep coming from? Like it was like every month it's like 250,000 jobs. It's like where are they where are they even finding these workers? There's nobody like I mean like it's only very recently started to slow down and job growth is still pretty good. I mean, I think what was it like 100 something last month. So basically even now it's still jobs are still increasing faster than the growth of the labor force. Now it's happening the jobs are growing slower now. And but unemployment doesn't seem to really be growing up. The good news is, I mean, for those of us who want an economic crisis, is that it does seem like you're seeing fewer full-time jobs and more part-time jobs if you're looking at the establishment survey. So that, I mean, it could possibly, again, I wouldn't be surprised if the recession ends up getting backdated to August and based on something like that, where we're going to say like, well, real wages were still declining, full-time jobs were declining, even if part-time jobs were going up, and the stock market peaked or whatever. So we'll call it August or whatever. I'm still going to say that they probably backdated to September. But no, and also initial claims, like, yeah, they're trending up. They're like the initial claims are trending up, but they're just not where we want to be. It's like 230,000 per week right now, and it's going up, but it's so fucking slow. Like it's just like you look at the chart, it's taking it for fucking ever. Now, I'm optimistic that the closer we get to it, the more we're going to see it accelerate, and I do believe I don't have the data on hand, but I did read this somewhere that this does happen with job losses and recessions, at least in American recessions. That job losses, you'll see employment continue to just go as normal, and then until you get to the recession or right before the recession or even into the recession when the job losses until you get to the point where the job losses actually start, you'll see like jobs are fine, and then over the period of like a month or two, out of nowhere, you start losing jobs. Again, I'd have to go back and look at the data. That actually sounds made up, but I read it somewhere. So that's, I mean, I guess we have to hope that that's what's going to happen. And I wouldn't be surprised considering, like I said, real wages are rising, and then so you would expect, and that's a big reason that we haven't seen job losses. I mean, there's like one of the reasons we haven't seen job losses because, like I said, a lot of more part-time jobs. So, you got companies labor hoarding. So a lot more part-time jobs, like fewer work, like working fewer hours and stuff like that. So that's, and then it's cheaper to hire a worker now because in real term, wages are cheaper. If that had been the reverse, if let's say hours had stayed the same and that wages per hour had gone up, real wages had gone up, you probably would have already seen, and you would have already seen job losses by now. And, or maybe, I don't know if you would have seen job losses right now, but you would have seen very slow job growth, and you'd be like well below new workers coming in. And so we're finally getting there. So hopefully it starts soon. But you saw this week. This was like the first really bad Dow week in the stock market for a while, and I don't pay much attention to the stock market because I don't really understand it. And like I said, I started following the stock market in like 2009. So to me, my entire stock market like watching career has just been waiting for it to collapse while it just keeps going up and up and up, and it just doesn't fucking stop. So like for me, that's the only experience of the stock market I've ever had. So I didn't really think too much, about it. But this week, we finally see the market have a really down bad week. And I remember, because I was following this last year too, it seemed like, oh, okay, it's finally starting to buckle, the stock market. And it did around this same time last year, but then it squeezed out another bullshit fucking recovery. It's like, how much more of how much longer can this shit go on? And but I think optimistic, and I'm confident that's the last one. That's the last bullshit recovery they're going to be able to get out, and then this one is for real. The last year's one, you had that leg down, and then bullshit recovery in the winter and spring, and then now we're at the real crash. Um, I'm not necessarily saying it's going to crash in September, even if I may have just said that. I think you're going to start to see it go majorly down, though. I do think you're probably going to see some crash in September. Um, so, right. So then, so if it crashes in September and you think, well, job losses start in January, then something like, let's say job losses start in January, which sounds about right, maybe even February. You figure, okay, well, they'll backdate the recession to when the stock market crashed. That would be my guess. So I think you'd probably see it that way. So I guess you would say, and anyway, but one thing that, like, I was thinking this anyway, based on just this week and like looking at the historical charts, thinking like, okay, yeah, we're going to have a rerun of last year, except without the recovery. But then today we found out that Evergrande Bank in China failed. So he's like, all these failures and stuff have been piling on for the last year. Like, those bank failures. Then the U.S. even had another bank failure like a couple weeks ago. And then Evergrande, this Chinese property developer that they thought they had to contain, there's another one. The Chinese yuan is collapsing and they're desperately trying to defend their currency. So, like, am I saying that, China's like gonna like be devastated and that's gonna take everything down? That's not really the point. I don't know. I mean, maybe, I don't know. But it seems like everything's coming to a head. Like you're having all these crises coming to a head. It's just a matter of time before something kicks the door down, and then the whole rotten structure comes collapsing down on it. So, but no, yeah, I mean, right now, my guess is yes, something with China. Because I think, like it's well, usually when it happens, I was watching this, and people have said this, other people have said this, but I'm sorry, I'm not crediting the guy. So somebody on the David Lynch show, and he said, it's one of those things. It's always, when you have these crises, it's always something that after the fact, everybody's like, oh yeah, we should have seen that, but nobody predicted it. And nobody's predicted Evergrande. People thought, well, it would be the U.S. banking crisis, the commercial real estate crisis, just the Fed raising too high, stuff like that. Just tons of student loan shit. And nobody was talking about, oh, actually, China doesn't recover and their currency detonates. And, in their property market detonates. And it's like, because we're China, this isn't contained to China. Evergrande filed for bankruptcy in New York. So, I mean, this is going to have an impact, or it should have an impact on the American economy. So, yeah, I mean, do I expect, I mean, I think we're going to have a really bad week in the Dow. I think the Dow finished just positive on Friday, although it was down for the week. I don't know, maybe you got a good Monday or something out of it. But yeah, I think next week overall it's going to be down, a big crash. I mean, I don't know, again, I don't know if a crash, but down, and like a bad, and then something like a crash in September, which is, like I said, where I ultimately expect the recession to be dated to. And then job losses, I can't see any earlier than January, maybe not until February. I think January is realistic. I think that's like, you have a lot of employers hoarding labor, and I think they're going to, after the new year, say, fuck it, can't do this anymore. So I think January, again, I really want to overshoot it because I know I have a tendency to predict that these things happen too soon to where they do. But that's what I'm saying right now. Recession in September. So my call was off because I think I explained the reasons earlier. I still think that overall it was a pretty good call. And then job losses starting in January. That's all for now, and I'll see you in the next.